Mission Nonprofit is a national award-winning community access television show and podcast produced by Thurston Community Media. It's available on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, and Spotify, on YouTube, and on demand at TCMedia.org. This month on Mission Nonprofit, we speak with PCAF, the Pierce County AIDS Foundation, an organization that assists people with HIV to meet their housing, food, and healthcare needs.
Support for Mission Nonprofit is provided by Thurston Talk.
This program is provided in the public interest by Thurston Community Media. More information at tcmedia.org. Hi, I'm Robert Kam, your host for Mission Nonprofit. This is a national award-winning program. This year, we received Best Informational Talk Show Series from the Alliance for Community Media. Today, we have PCAF. Chief Executive Officer Ace Robinson is with me. Welcome to the show, Ace.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So PCAF stands for Pierce County AIDS Foundation.
Yes, we were founded over 30 years ago, and we were founded in the Tacoma region, really focused on people living with HIV and associated illnesses. And then as the epidemic grew, so did our organization. So you can find us in Pierce County, in Thurston County, Mason County, and Lewis County. And in Thurston County, we're in Olympia. We're at 2101 4th Avenue East, over by the Big Tom East, if you like your hamburgers. So we're literally across the street.
Yeah, everybody knows where that is.
Yes.
So how long have you been in business? When did you start?
So I've been with the organization about a year and a half, but the organization began a little over 30 years ago. Wow. And so I think as you know, the HIV epidemic hasn't really slowed down. The communities that are highly impacted might have shifted a little, but the epidemic is still with us, unfortunately.
But there's better treatment options now.
Oh yeah, so we were having a great conversation right beforehand, talking about how the future of HIV is actually today, right? Okay. Yep. So we are now in a world where whether or not you want to, if you're not living with HIV, say you're on that side of your HIV journey, you can take pills, or you can get like an injection every other month to avert HIV acquisition in the event that you're ever exposed to it. And let's say you are living with HIV. Well, we have something for you too. So we can have the standard option of the pills, because when you think about when we were younger, before we both had gray hair, it was like, oh, okay, so you have to take some of the pills and it's going to be hard on your body and all these things. Now the medication's easy on your body. You take one pill a day, you're going to live like your expected life expectancy. Or if you don't want to do that, just like I was saying with prevention, you can take injectables as well, where they just give you a shot and you just come 6 times a year for your injections. Or you can still take your oral pills daily if that's what you prefer.
Is this the same medication for prevention and for treatment?
There is some medication that we've utilized for prevention that was originally for treatment, right? But now, the treatment keeps evolving and getting better and better. So every time that I come back from one of those nerdy HIV conferences, we have some really great conversations about this is what's coming down the pipeline, or this is what's new in HIV care and treatment. So the medication that most people have utilized for HIV prevention, it was the FDA approved it back in 2012, but it had been around since 2008. But now think about it, since then, every year there's something new and better that on the treatment side. So yeah, it's still the medication that we used to use for treatment, but now we've moved past that, and there's a real focus on the prevention medications on one side and the treatment medications on the other.
And I've heard of PrEP.
Yeah,
probably most people have heard of PrEP.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Okay.
And so just like it sounds, pre-exposure, before you have sex. So before you have that type of exposure. And prophylaxis just means it's going to be some level of intervention that if you are exposed to HIV, so let's say you have condom-free sex. And there's and the HIV virus is flowing through your body. Well, it's going to attack that virus immediately before it has a chance to grow, so your body can clear it. So have you ever had the flu?
Well, yes.
Okay, so you remember these Z-Packs you take, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what happens when they tell you, they're all like, okay, you take your Z-Pack and you take, the first day you take 5, then you take 4, you take 3. But they say when you get to the 3 part, you might not feel better, but actually that virus is so low that it's actually impossible for you to pass the flu on to somebody else, which is the most important part to stopping the flu, right? So it's no different in HIV land. So like if someone's living with HIV and they're able to take their medication, the virus can get so low that it is impossible to pass it on to somebody else. And we call that U equals U, or undetectable equals untransmittable. Now, let's say you don't know the HIV status of your partner. The thing you were just talking about, PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. So it doesn't matter, like if you and I are having condom-free sex, it doesn't matter if you're on, let's say you're living with HIV and I'm not. It doesn't matter if you're on medication, if I'm utilizing PrEP, because that means I won't be able to acquire HIV if there was an exposure. So we've made things really, really simple, but that is really, really simple for us public health geeks. Like, so, you know, so many people who are out in the audience today might not have ever heard of PrEP before. They might not have heard of U equals U. They might not know that, oh, if I'm doing this one thing, I don't have to worry about this other thing. Because with what we do for a living, our job is to put ourselves out of business, right? All we want to do is we want to make it HIV so rare that you'll be all like, you're like, do you remember Ace? Like I interviewed him like back in 2023. I wonder what he's doing now. Oh, he's a bartender on a beach somewhere in Ecuador, right?
So Ace, even though there's these wonderful medications and the future of HIV care and prevention is today, it's still important to get tested, right? Okay, and you guys do free testing. Yeah. You do free testing a couple of days a week, but you have testing all week long, right?
Yeah, so if you want to come in at any time, we're open Monday through Fridays, and right now we're open around 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So just walk on in through the door, somebody will test you for HIV and STIs, so like what we used to call STDs when we were younger, but now we say STIs for a lot of biological reasons. But anyway, so one thing that's very important is when they talk about knowing your status. Let's say you're dating somebody new, or you're just going to go out and you want to, just part of your normal healthcare checkup, you just want to get screened. And you don't want to necessarily go to the doctor and go through all these processes. You're just like, oh, I want my results now. So come on down to PCAF. The person who opens the door for you is the same person who will screen you. They're wonderful. They're very super nice. And you'll get your test results. You'll get your HIV test results immediately. Wow. And you'll get your STI test results the next day. So it's fast and clean.
And people might be more comfortable with that because they might find it a little embarrassing talking to their regular doctor, right? Yeah. And they can just go to somebody that they know, isn't going to
no judgment.
Them. Exactly, right?
Right. Because we talk about stigma in our field, right? Yeah. So people sometimes don't feel comfortable talking about their sex life, talking about if they use any substances, if they're using drugs or anything. And you're like, oh, I want to go someplace where no one's going to think anything about what I do. Because trust and believe, we've heard it all. And we don't care about any of it. All we want to do is make sure that you stay on the prevention side, if possible, of any of those things. And then if there is a need for treatment, we want to make sure you get treatment fast and easy, and so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and then the PrEP and the drugs that are out there, they work with intravenous HIV infections as well?
Yeah, so if someone is using substances, like someone's shooting up, because we're in Washington State. And we know that we are in the part of the country that is most impacted, not by fentanyl, but by fentanyl overdoses. So we have a lot of people who are using substances, and we talk about harm reduction, because what did we learn in the 80s and 90s? For those of you who are old enough to remember the 80s and 90s, the war on drugs, all they did was drive people underground, and it led many people to die and have overdoses. What did we find is that treatment, education, understanding was much better than imprisonment. And so making sure that we have all the options available. And one of those options, of course, is to avert HIV acquisition and hepatitis C and other STIs while you're living your life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now these other infections, hepatitis and everything, there's probably, that's a different story. You don't have drugs that help prevent that. You just have to test for it.
Oh, actually, we do.
You've got some.
So with hepatitis A, so for everyone, hepatitis is like a disease of the liver, right? And what they call it a silent killer. And what does that mean? That means that if you acquire hepatitis today, you're fine. And 3 months later, you're still fine. 5 years later, you're still fine. You turn 60, you turn 65, and then suddenly your liver rapidly starts getting cirrhotic, starts hardening. And once it starts hardening, then you start having end-stage liver disease or moving in that direction, and then you're looking for a liver transplant and all that. You know how you could have prevented all that? Was to make sure you got screened for hepatitis early in life. And so hepatitis C, for an example, is mostly, you mostly can acquire it through sex or through drug use. And right now we have some treatment that's not difficult for the body. Because if you speak to our parents, they know that hepatitis C, it's so hard, you feel sick, and then they tell you at the end, oh, you got to do it again because it didn't actually work. Now the medication actually works, is easy on the body relatively, and then you can clear the hepatitis. And then on the prevention side, there's a vaccine for hepatitis A and B, and you make sure you can eliminate hepatitis from your life, because this is one of those things where a virus might lead to a cancer or to an organ failure that we could have prevented very easily in our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s.
And you can cure yourself of these?
Yeah. So hepatitis C is curable, and then
but not A and B.
Right. So you want to try. There's different medication. Like hepatitis C is easy, said and done. Hepatitis A and B, you control it, and you can get it to a place where it's not going to harm you.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. So we're really moving ahead in what I do for a living, communicable diseases. We're no matter what you do, how you live your life, we always want to make sure that, oh yeah, you're not going to die early, you're not going to start feeling sick, and all these types of things are avoidable. That was not avoidable 2 generations ago, because when we talk about the boomer generation, or not even the older boomer generation, because they split that in 2 because there were so many of them, but the older boomer generation, unfortunately they did die of a lot of these things. And when we talk about what happened in the 80s and 90s when people were dying from HIV-related causes, what we call the AIDS crisis. We're now at a state where this is all preventable. We can stop all of this. But like you said at the beginning, first you got to get tested. And then if you do have a positive result, you have to get on treatment and stay on treatment for hepatitis C for a few weeks. And then for HIV, it might be the rest of your life, but it might be those 6 injections for a year, or you pop a pill in the morning and you just keep it moving. So, we know that people are going to do. If we thought that it was if there was one fix for everything, and then we could get rid of HIV, get rid of hepatitis C, no. What we're doing, we're giving you a lot of options. We're saying here's your plate. Do you want pills? Do you want condoms? Do you want injections? What do you want? Tell us what you want, and we'll do that. Okay. And then it's all going to be fine.
All right, but I need to now ask you about costs, because I remember the Dallas Buyers Club and that story about the underground,
right.
medication market and everything. Is it affordable now? Is it easily attainable? Can you get these treatments?
Yes.
Okay, that's
great. One thing we've worked really hard on in this country, this is the policy, the
advocacy?
Right, I can get into that nerdy stuff, but the short answer is yes. So if you don't have insurance at all, there's a way for you to get treatment for free. If you do have insurance, even, with Obamacare, we had something called the Platinum Plan and the Gold Plan, the Silver and the Bronze. Even if you have the Bronze Plan, when it comes to HIV treatment, where they make sure that it is very cheap and affordable. We're in the state of Washington, and we're in a state that said, have you ever been around individuals who tried to get medication, but they couldn't get the best medication because they hadn't failed on the previous one? So what happens with people who take cholesterol medication, some people are diabetic, and they're oh, there's this gold standard that it works perfectly, but the insurance company won't cover it until you've tried everything else. Yeah. So in the land of HIV in Washington State, we got rid of that.
Oh, okay. So they can use the best drugs now.
Right. We called it prior authorizations, which means you have to go through a bunch of hoops to get it.
Uh-huh.
We got rid of prior authorizations
nice.
in Washington State. So it's like our legislators are very focused on making sure that we can eliminate HIV. I've had some great conversations with our speaker Lori Jenkins is like really focused on this. We have County Council member Ryan Mello really focused on trying to eliminate HIV, and that's not true in every state.
Yeah.
You know, like even in some of the liberal left states, that's also not true where they are, but it's true where we are.
That's great. We're lucky to be here in Washington.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Fantastic. Okay. Some of the other things your organization does. First of all, I want to tell everybody about your website so they can, you know, if they don't remember when or where to go for that testing and what days the free testing are, they can go to pcaf-wa.org.
Exactly.
And they can find out where the locations are in Tacoma. You've got one in Olympia. You've got one. Do you have one in Mason County as well?
So in Mason and Lewis, we roam around.
Okay.
So we go to where the people are.
All right, but they can probably find out where that's going to be. All right, on your website. And
yeah, for sure.
But you do other things. You've got support groups. You use volunteers. Tell me about some of the other things that you do.
So if I say the term whole person care, what do I mean by that? That means that I'm not just focused on this part of your body or that part of your body. I need to focus on your whole life. So I need to make sure that like I can't talk to you about, oh, you need to really take this medication if I'm not also talking to you about where did you sleep last night? Do you have a roof over your head? Okay, are you hungry? Did you eat before you came to your appointment? You know, talking to people about those issues. We were talking a little bit about harm reduction. Okay, so are you getting the care you need around your substance use? And then, you know, we're in a part of the country that has a significant number of veterans, right? And just like many other people in the world, but really specifically the veterans, we talk about things like PTSD, your brain health. Are you getting the kind of care you need around depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder? Are you getting that amount of care? Because in the work that I do, the biggest predictors to not just HIV acquisition or STD acquisition, but progression and unfortunately death, is whether or not you are getting the care you need around your brain health and whether or not you're getting housed. And so that's why it's so important that you ask that, because we focus on those pieces, because we can't just do one thing and turn our back to the other things. That's like, you know, like when we say like that whole person care, you're going to get that when you walk through the door. You're going to be around somebody who not just understands the path that you walk on, but how to get you to the path where you want to be.
Excellent. Okay. And how can people support your organization? Or how are you funded also? You know, where does the funding come from?
So we're funded primarily by public funding, so thank you taxpayers.
Excellent.
But then we're also funded by pharmaceuticals, by also private individuals. And so anyone who wants to share some of their time, we have volunteers.
Excellent.
And internships. So individuals, like we were speaking today around some of the work we're doing around our housing program. It's like, oh yeah, we need to partner with some of the people who are looking at doing social work or family therapy and really connect with them to make sure they get an opportunity to work with a different clientele. And with our volunteers, it's like, oh yeah, some of this can be as stringent as you're going to do this on this time of the day every week, or it might be, oh, we have a one-off, like, oh, do you want to help work with people on the encampments? Do you want to help with a fundraising event? All those types of things. And then I would be a horrible CEO if I didn't say we also take cash. So you can always go to the website and donate, because when we talk about innovation, and this is like why I think everyone always pays attention to what people in HIV are saying and doing beyond the people who work in HIV, because we found a way to really work with the communities that are unserved, historically unserved, and find a way to help them. And a lot of that is because of the kind and generous donations of our community. People who say, okay, well, you have you're being funded by the Department of Health or Thurston County Public Health Social Services to do X, Y, Z. Well, what if I need to do ABC too? Like something that might come up. Mm-hmm. You might not remember this, but there is this thing called COVID that came out of nowhere. And this is like a whole 3 years ago. We're just chugging along, talking about HIV. But then COVID comes along. Uh-huh. And so what happened, we took a lot of the funding that came from donations and it came from community, really helped us pivot not pivot eventually, pivot on the spot to make sure we're able to serve those communities. Because in our field, we already knew, just what we know today, that COVID was going to highly impact the same communities that already sat in our waiting room. We knew that when Mpox, like formerly known as Monkeypox, when Mpox came along, we knew that was going to highly impact certain communities, and we had to be able to pivot immediately, and we wouldn't be able to do that without the support of our community with their donations. So thank you.
So the cash donations, they help you to be flexible.
Yes. Yes.
But then you have these other funds, and you mentioned some organizations like the Thurston County Public Health and some others, and so you probably get donations from a lot of those different groups.
Yeah, so we work with grants, like you submit like your proposal is how you're going to use the taxpayers' money, and then it's a competition, but it's a friendly competition with other people in the community who often are serving very similar clientele, and so we always want to make sure that, even if we weren't funded, or even if we are the one who's funded, you have to reach out and have those partnerships with the other community-based organizations that are doing similar work, or maybe different work, but we have the exact same clientele. Because if you're one of our clients, and you're also the clients of this organization over here, from your perspective, we're the same thing. Your job is to help you. So we have to be working together, hand in hand, to make sure that it is as seamless as possible to support you. Because if we have those gaps, you're going to feel them. And we have to make sure that you don't feel any of those gaps.
You mentioned monkeypox, or Mpox is now what it's called.
Yeah.
What is the state of that right now?
We're, as expected, we're seeing a little bubbles, like it's starting to bubble back up, because a lot of people, especially in this state, okay, let's go back. So Mpox is a type of smallpox that is mostly seen in the genital and oral areas, right? It's very easy for it to present there.
Gotcha.
And it's extremely painful. And I think one thing that they didn't always talk about was how hard it was for people to live their lives, like if they acquired Mpox. People really were in extreme, excruciating pain. And what we were able to see, because it's a smallpox. Now remember, this is like a virus that's been around for a long time, so we had some ideas on how to treat it. It wasn't like HIV in 1981, where we're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're all like, we know what to do here.
Okay.
And so while that was going, we knew that there was a vaccine that could also be used as a treatment, but primarily as a vaccine that you could take that would reduce or eliminate your ability to acquire it. Like if you acquire it, it's going to be less. Like your COVID or your COVID vaccine boosters. Like you can acquire it, but you're not going to die. So like Mpox, like we had the same thing. Like you might acquire, but you might get like what feels like pimples, as opposed to like a rash that is debilitating. So, but it was a 2-series vaccine. So you're asking about hepatitis B. How many times have you had like a two series vaccine and you got the first one, but you didn't get the second?
I see.
And so that happens to a lot of people.
Okay.
And we expected that so many people who got the first one who didn't come back for the second one. We're like, when does it start to wane? About a year, and it gets lower and lower and lower.
So that's why it's bubbling up.
Right, so now it's bubbling up again. So we just had a vaccine clinic just this past Thursday or Friday, last week. And we'll do a couple more, because it's important, because we know that, we can prevent this. We can stop this. Remember what I said before. There are so many things that we can make sure it never happens. We can't prove that something didn't happen, but we can show you that if you don't do anything, it gets pretty bad. And so with Mpox, we have what we need to get rid of this and clear it. But then if we don't do the work that has to be done, it will come back. And just give it time, because I don't know if you've been watching the news. You heard of malaria? We did all that work back when we were babies, so not us, but like our parents and grandparents did all that work to basically eradicate malaria. And with global warming and the fact that we didn't actually eliminate it around the world, we just got rid of it in North America.
Gotcha.
It's back.
Yeah.
And this is where my nerdy kicks in. When I was finishing undergrad, there was this thing called syphilis. And I remember during one of the debates, it was Gore Bush and Nader debates, syphilis came up, and like it was just like, oh, this is going to be gone soon. And because we were so close to getting rid of it. And then right when we were about to get rid of it, we stopped funding it. We stopped talking about it. And now what's happening, we are one of the worst countries in the world when it comes to syphilis. We're congenital syphilis when a pregnant person passes syphilis on to the baby. We're having a lot of those types of cases. So we can get rid of anything, but it is like with what I do for a living, you can't just get rid of it and then stop. We have to
keep it, keep the pressure on.
Right,
Gotcha.
Right.
Well, cool. Well, but people can get the Mpox vaccines with you guys?
Yes.
Excellent.
So we have
nice.
those clinics. So so we're going to set up another clinic, and you can just reach out and say, hey, when should I come in and get my vaccines? Because we want to make sure people get their flu, Mpox, COVID, We just want to make sure that, again, you stay on the prevention side as opposed to the treatment side of any of these things. Because, this is like serious talk, but all we're saying is go live your life. Go live your life, have as much fun as you want to, any which way you want to do it. And if you just do these little things, you'll never have the bad results of having fun. Because it doesn't matter whether it's playing video games or going out and what you're going to do on a night of clubbing. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that that you're enjoying yourselves, that you're having a pleasurable life, that you're really having a fulfilled life, and you're not worried about like all those things that I have to worry about. What keeps me up at night should not be keeping you up at night.
You'll take the worries for them.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly. That's my job.
Well, we're almost out of time, but is there anything else we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to bring up?
I think one thing that's really just exciting about what we're doing in the HIV space, we're really like unapologetically focusing on those communities that are highly impacted. So, when we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, when we talk about Black, Indigenous people of color, when we talk about unhoused people, we're no longer saying these things in the shadows. Like we're having these conversations in these types of meetings, to have these types of conversations where it's no secrets, it's no one having to hide anymore. And what happens when you bring things to light, things get better. So removing people out of the dark. And I have to say thank you to you and to other individuals who are bringing these conversations forward, because I think with your support, we can end this HIV epidemic, not in our lifetime, probably in a few years. Because, we saw, you and I were talking about other places that are doing great beforehand. And you look at some place like London, you look at a country like Botswana, you look at a country like Vietnam. They aligned all the planets. They took away all those stigmatizing conversations. They had people like you speaking to the community. You had elected officials saying this is what needs to be done. Everyone was speaking the same language, and they ended the HIV epidemic. So I think with your help, we can make this happen.
That's awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ace.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you today. To find out more about PCAF, go to their website at pcaf-wa.org. You can also find them on Facebook at PCAF-WA. I'd just like to take a moment to announce that this will be the last Mission Nonprofit with me, Robert Cam, as your host. I've hosted this show since 2010, and I've loved every minute. I'd like to thank all of the wonderful guests that have taken the time to come on, and thank you for tuning in to spend some time with me and learn more about your local community. Thanks for watching.
Support for Mission Nonprofit is provided by Thurston Talk.
This program is provided in the public interest by Thurston Community Media. More information at TCMedia.org.